Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. On today's episode, I have with me Houman Kashanipour, also known as HK, who is the CEO and President of Alliant Power. HK is a transformative leader who believes that the key to sustainable change, growth, and success is to invest in people and partnerships. He joined Alliant Power as Chief Commercial Officer in 2017, and since HK has led talented and innovative teams to drive the expansion of service reach, distribution scale, and production capabilities. Prior to joining Alliant Power, HK held several leadership roles with Navistar, SDST, and more. And HK, an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Gotten to know you over the past few years and seen how transformative you really have been with a company that's near and dear to my heart. So welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Hey, Jay, thank you for having me on. And listen, you're as much as an inspiration to me and what you're doing for the industry and what you've done with WrenchWay. And it's great to be on this podcast with you.
Well, thank you very much. I say near and dear to my heart because Alliant Power, at the time when I worked there, it was known as Diesel Injection Service, but and it seems like a long, long time ago, but I still have a lot of really close friends from the company. But it's been, I mean, you've changed it. It is a completely different company, I feel like, than when I worked there in a lot of really good ways.
Well, and I would say the credit goes to the core culture of the company. And if you think about our founder and I always love watching the new video of Gene that we have, the Gene Shy, who was we just had him here last year, and his other passion for the customer and who's really the boss has led us to grow to service our customers. So I think that the evolution for us has been our customers are changing, the markets are changing, so we just want to serve. And I think the other side of it is our current chairman and Bob Bruning always says, if you're not growing, you're dying. You just don't know it. So based on those two principles of taking care of the customers and always looking for growth, that's my guiding light, and it's really helped us as a team here to continue to figure out how we find the next frontier so that we can serve the customer better.
Yeah, it's a heck of a foundation to start with, and I think going back to my time there, I remember getting a job there and having several people come up to me after I got the job and I started, and several people coming up to me and saying, "How did you get in there? Like, what did you do to get your foot in the door?" I'm like, honestly, I just applied. But it was such a eye-opening moment to me to see that there was a company out there that it was a challenge to get into. And as we look at current state of employers, that's really what you're trying to get to. You want to get to that point to where your people feel like they're lucky to have a job there, that the outsiders view that as, hey, that person works for a really respected company. And I think that's been something you've been able to maintain over the years, is that brand and really being able to be that North Star of a business in the diesel industry. So a lot of credit to you. I want to talk about you first. And this is something we do in pretty much every podcast, but your background is fascinating, and I want to walk through this a little bit. So give us an idea. Where did you grow up at?
Ah, yeah. I actually grew up in the middle of Indiana. I was just talking to some of our new employees I was doing a welcome session with them. I grew up in Columbus, Indiana. I went to high school in Columbus North, and then from there ended up at Purdue. My mom actually still lives in the area, so yeah, my roots are in the Midwest.
What did you go to Purdue for?
Industrial engineering, but sometimes I like to call that IE degree imaginary engineering. So because I have to imagine things. No, but I got my IE degree at Purdue, and it was I would say it wasn't an easy 4 years, but it was a great 4 years, and I'm really it was a great education and the right one for me. So it was good.
Was diesel on the radar when you were in college?
No, you know what? I think what was in college, it was, I had an affinity for, understanding how things were made and the business side. Um, Compared to traditional IE, that really actually gave me that ability to understand, how to bring the two sides together, how to make things and how do you make a business out of them. And actually, the way I got into diesel was I was an intern. I was a summer intern on the shop floor polishing crankshafts in the Power Stroke plant in Indianapolis. And I was you know, the those 2 years of internship really kind of set my path into diesel. And it's another reason where I think we all have to provide those internship opportunities. You never know what comes out of an intern and what they go through. But yeah, that's how I got started in the diesel world.
It's such a good point because we talk a lot about apprenticeship and internship and the importance of kind of getting your paws on somebody when they're young. And statistically, there's a lot to back that up, that once you show that path and you get somebody interested in your industry, the likelihood that they're going to stick is huge. And in your case, ascending to the top of a great company and being able to pair, I thought another maybe interesting point there was pairing engineering with business, because a lot of
Yeah.
times I think there's engineers that struggle at that side, right? They struggle at the business side. So really fascinating to know that. When you're first starting out and you go to college, what's your first job? Like what after the internship and you graduate and you're out in the
Yeah.
real world, what's your first job?
Well, yeah. So my first job was I ended up becoming a manufacturing engineer. So I was and boy, I remember those days, and it was actually around connecting rods for diesel engines. For the at that point was a Ford Power Stroke, and and it was interesting. Somebody says, "Well, how can that part be so hard? It's got four holes in it, two bolt holes and two through holes." I can tell you that was a hard thing to make it a high quality product. So yeah, I started as a manufacturing engineer, um, and I always loved working on the floor, and I like the continuous improvement. And yeah, in the 90s, that was what I grew up around.
That's really cool. And so you get up and you're working for a few different companies. It was Navistar before Alliant Power, right?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, when I started as an intern, I started as an intern for Navistar in 1993, and I actually worked for them through multiple jobs and joint ventures for 20 years. So
Wow.
yeah, so if there was there's a story behind every one of those quote unquote assignment moves. I want to say job moves, but some of them are my doing. Some of them was a higher calling doing. Let's put it that way. So yeah, so I went from manufacturing engineering to different types of roles. Yeah.
So what was it that led you to Alliant Power? And at the time, was it diesel forward yet, or was it still diesel injection?
It was diesel forward. Yeah, and that story. Before I talk about how I ended up at diesel forward, I have to go back and how did I end up in the fuel system world?
Oh, true.
So I told you that I started on the shop floor with connecting rods, and years later it was cams, cranks, blocks, and heads, and from an engineer to manager. But I remember one time getting up and telling my boss, I said, "Man, I need to go work on something that's the heart of the engine. I need to go work on the fuel system." Uh, that's how I actually ended up into the fuel system side of the business, and then later on running one of our joint ventures for Navistar that did fuel system. And in that experience throughout time, that's actually I had met Bob Brunick, and at that point, we were actually competitors. So and then years later, I ended up, sitting on this other side and joined when when we were diesel forward in 2017.
That is really interesting to hear. So it started with just a passion for the fuel system side,
Yeah.
and then that transition to diesel forward. And I think along the lines, it's been interesting to see that progress as a company, right? Because you go from the traditional diesel injection service
Yeah.
to rebranding to Alliant Power to now, or actually, I'm sorry, to Diesel Forward, and then to Alliant Power. And I think knowing what a reputation that diesel injection service had back, way back before the distribution days, and really when it was focused on fuel pumps, and being able to kind of work your way into kind of a full out rebrand, that's not an easy thing to do, right? Like kind of navigating all of those waters, and just you've worked so hard to build those brands up, and then kind of putting all your eggs in the Alliant Power basket.
Yeah, and I would say, Jay, it's to me, it was the convergence of everything we do and how to serve the market. And so let's talk about the transition into Alliant Power. Alliant Power was a brand of the company for a long time. And what did the really stand for? Reliant Power was, when a particular repair needed all its complete parts, particularly around fuel or engine, Reliant Power was that integrator that brought it together. And the reason we made the shift of the name of the company, you know, when people say, "What do you guys do?" We fix very sophisticated systems. Our customers fix very sophisticated components. And I remember sitting across a major OEM executive, and he says, "But you're diesel." I'm like, "No, no, we fix things." The name of the company is Diesel Forward. And that kind of was also another spark for us to say that we have this powerful brand. When you think about Alliant Power, we fix power source. We're component experts. Our network knows how to fix sophisticated items. Um, Distribution is part of it, repair is part of it, remanufacturing is part of it. But all of this stuff comes together. And if you think about the future, and this I tell this to our employees and I tell this to our customers in our association, whatever is the future, and there will be a different future, okay? It'll have a couple components. One is you got to take care of the old stuff, you know. And by the way, when you want to talk about green and you want to think about livelihood of people, that piece of equipment on the farm that needs to run needs to run. You can't have, a pump stopping an equipment to run or forcing somebody to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a new piece of equipment. The second part is we're going to have a transitional period, and nobody's got a crystal ball 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it may be. Reality is our company was 60 years old last year. We're planning for the next 60. So what I tell people is the third element of this thing. Be it hydrogen fuel cells have a lot of potential, or be it that it's electric systems or hydrogen conversion of ICE engines. Every one of these systems has a lot of heat that goes through it. There's a lot of fluid that gets pumped through it, and you still have to diagnose it. You still have to repair it. Who better than a diesel technician that knows how to run a clean room, knows how to fix something sophisticated? It's just going to happen to look and feel a little different, but you still need a lot of knowledge and skill sets. You're going to need a lot of computer skills. You need a lot of, understanding of both mechanical and electrical systems. So as we think about, sometimes we think about diesel as being all this dirty old thing. The reality is, you know, I learned this a long time ago in my OE days. A diesel engine tolerances for a diesel engine is for every with the critical features is half of that of a gasoline engine. So diesel engines are pretty darn sophisticated. So take that sophisticated know-how and tomorrow fix something else. So part of our whole rebranding was to kind of pull this stigma out and says, hey, we're only diesel. No, we fix power sources. Today we fix diesels. We're going to be great at it. Tomorrow we'll figure out how we position ourselves and our customers and train for it to be able to fix the next power source, wherever that may be.
I think it's very smart because you don't back yourself into a corner in terms of the brand, but also having the foresight to know that things are going to change and evolve while we're still taking care of current day needs, right? And I think there's a huge concern amongst the industry about how do you keep up with this stuff, and really I think that's a really nice segue of the company and how you're leading the company moving forward as to what the future of this industry looks like. And it is scary for a lot of people, and I think change is scary, but we've been changing for a long time. I remember when I was, at my my history in the company was when Common Rail was first coming out, right?
Mhm.
And that was like the new earth-shattering thing that was going to change everything, and it just continues to evolve. And I love the way that you put that in that it's changing, but that's maybe not something to be scared of, but look at it as maybe there's future opportunity, and we're well positioned to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and listen, I think this is just the we as humans don't like change, but the reality of it is if we continue to educate ourselves and continue to, be curious and hungry, and this is why we need to get the younger people involved. The things still need to move from point A to point B. They're gonna have some form of a power source, or even stationary power needs to be able to do certain things. So, and things are gonna break, and you're gonna have to fix them. So, um, you just gotta. We all just gotta position ourselves. I learned this from an old leader. You just gotta position yourself to be the obvious choice. You know, you can't just say, "Hey, build it, then they shall come." No, build your skill sets, do the things today, and be accepting of whatever may come next. And to your point, because we're not going to change, it's not like we're going to decide what's the next power source, but surely we can put ourselves in a position of what part of that solution we can be repairing.
Technicians, are you looking for a new job? Even if you're just casually looking, you need to check out Reverse Job Posts. Reverse Job Posts flip the traditional job board around. You fill out a short questionnaire and let shops reach out to you with questions or job opportunities. No resume needed. The best part is all of your contact information remains anonymous until you're ready to share it. It's a great way to explore new job opportunities, and it's completely free. To create a reverse job post, simply download the free WrenchWay mobile app or visit WrenchWay.com and click on the reverse job post link. We've also included the links in the show notes.
How do you stay on top of like trends that are coming our way? As a leader of a fairly good sized company, how do you keep your thumb on the pulse of what's happening in the industry, what's coming in the next 5 years, 10 years, and really kind of be able to build your forecast off of that? Because I have to imagine there's a bit of a challenge there in trying to predict the future.
Sure. Well, I think you're right. I mean, sitting here and wanting to always plan on a crystal ball, we don't do that. I mean, the way we plan, we try to we try to live this whole thing about operational excellence. What can we do today? Stay from one side, stay connected to our primary partners, and usually our primary partners like the Bosches of the world, the BorgWarners, they're also leading that transition and asking questions, saying, okay, you're going to come out with widget X. What do you need from a service perspective? Not to run off and do something today, but at least understand the Lego pieces. And then we start talking through that. And this is what's led us into we're going to build a brand new distribution and training center in Denver. And we picked Denver for a reason. It's a central hub. And as part of that, actually, we're going to start offering authorized certified training classes on legacy product for Bosch, and we already do this for others. Well, you would say, well, why Denver? Why not Madison? Well, first of all, there's 219 direct flights into Denver. It's a central location, but we also believe that building a competency around training today is going to be around legacy pumps. Tomorrow may be, 30,000 RPM blower that blows that goes inside of a hydrogen fuel cell that goes into a truck, we know. So the point is getting ourselves involved in training of the future products or what's the failure modes kind of gives us insight how can we there for repair. So that's we staying really close to our partners. That's what we are and that's what guides us. The other side is we talk to some of our customers. Obviously we have some large customers, and we understand what's their needs. What challenges then they have, and then we try to we work towards building that roadmap. Now, in all of this, we've figured out, for example, there's new competencies. Just like you go to a new job, you find out, hey, I better have new competencies. Well, we're finding out that, hey, our diagnostics, our prognostics, and way to handle high voltage electronics is going to be next. So we're already starting to talk about, well, can we dabble in particular projects to get us there? So part of this, then we're laying out, doing a gap assessment. Says, okay, what skill are we going to need for this next thing? The one thing we're not doing is betting on one future technology. You know what? We're on the tail end. We're going to repair it. We're going to let the experts figure out which one of the power sources are going to be the prime power of the future. My personal opinion, there's not going to be one solution. There's going to be multiple vary. So that's going to give a lot of good challenges for technicians who need to today one day service a gasoline to diesel, next day a hydrogen, next day electric. There's going to be different sets of competency and expertise that a shop needs to have in the future.
I really love the fact that you ground yourself there, right? Where it's not trying to wrap your mind around all of the potential change that could happen or let it freak you out in terms of change, but to kind of really make good decisions based on data that you have and data at your disposal, and having those conversations with the OEs. I think that's very unique in what you guys do, that you do have direct contact with some of those folks that are, really driving a lot of this change, and getting to know those people. I know you guys have just phenomenal relationships with those OE partners, but I think it from a leadership standpoint can be really difficult to not let your mind go wild there. Yeah. And the more you can kind of calm it and just have reasonable thinking, the more clear you're going to lead.
Yeah, and Jay, I think the other thing is that there's, just something that guides me is like if you do the basics right and always keep yourself grounded to continuous improvement. So think about this as if there's a shop out there today that if they're not profitable, it doesn't matter what the technology is. So learn how to run a business well. If you have, you've talked a lot about this, the technician culture. It doesn't matter what the technology is if you don't have technicians. If you have a way to educate on the next, small increments of training for your team, and they have that curiosity and habit to do that, when somebody comes and says, hey, can you guys repair this? You're not sitting 10 years back. So I think this is about just a culture of saying that I'm going to have great basic, continuous improvement skills, and I'm going to run business that makes sense. So I think, yeah, there may be some things that are totally revolutionary, but I don't think the changes are going to come in steps, and we can kind of go along with it. It'll be different, but get your basics right, and that's the way we look at it.
That's a great message to any business that's out there, but just sticking to the fundamentals and making sure that you're a good place to work and that you're doing things the right way. I think that goes such a long way. And I know one thing that was always fascinating to me is you have a dealer network, right? You have service dealers that have been, I think, very core to the business for a long, long time. And that shop, when you look at that type of shop from 20 years ago, I think was traditionally fixing pumps, right? A lot of them were doing just general diesel pump repair, and they've had to evolve, right? And I think it's easy for a bigger company to kind of keep your thumb on that. But I think as it pertains to maybe that that service dealer that you're working with, is it hard to keep maybe them from getting the anxiety of seeing the change, or are they pretty open to it and, they've seen this before, we've changed before, and we'll roll with the punches? Give me an idea of I know that's a super vague question, but what does the general population of service dealer kind of think of all of this change?
Yeah, I think it goes into the same tone that you and I had at the beginning here. Is the reality is there's anxiety, right? So there's certain people that would say, okay, I'm going to continue to do different things. There's certain people that says, whoa, it may not be for me, and there's certain people that says, hey, tell me, So it goes like anything else. Like even when you think like organizational changes, it's about communication. Right? So the communication is, this is what we know today. Don't have a crystal ball, but if you do these things, and you got to keep progressing. So I would say you would see them in all types of buckets, but more and more I see people are really hungry to understand, okay, what do we need to do to prepare for it? And this is where I consider it's our accountability, to bring together what our partners are saying, or understand what the market needs and take it to them. And step by step, as we learn, we let them know, but also being very honest and clear that we don't have all the answers. All we know is that, we're partnering with the right people to kind of be that obvious choice as we go forward here.
I love the transparency. I think that is so key in that relationship, to not try to put a facade over it, or try to act like, nothing is changing, but really trying to push that change within your SDs, and really trying to, it sounds weird, but calm their nerves a little bit, right? Like, hey, we got this. We're on top of the changing. We're going to educate you. We're going to keep you in the know. And I think all of those types of things are the things that help build trust, and they help calm anxiety and really help them build better businesses. And I think, as we look at shops as a whole moving forward, I think there are so many well-run shops now, and people that have evolved to change their business over the past decade, that, maybe 10 years ago, they weren't the strongest shop in the world, but they've done the right things and maybe even got the right leader in place, or whatever it might be. I know that's talking in generalities, but it is also, I think, a reality that I think there's a lot of diesel shops that have gotten significantly better at business in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I agree with you. And I got to tell you, I've personally visited one of our customers, and I'll give a shout out to this Eric at Fifth Gear. And I have to tell you, I visited him one day in Denver. The next day we had other people coming in. I said, we're going to go back, and we keep thinking service locations are, they're just not this pleasant places to work, and it's old, no technology. I have to tell you, Eric's shop was inspiring, and I told him this, and I'll recognize him for this. It's like, his people were educated. He had a younger staff, and the technology he was using in the shop was really cool. And he was running a great business. And by the way, more and more, I'm finding other examples of this in other parts of the country. So the point is not to assume that, repair shops can be successful, can be there for the younger folks. I've seen a couple examples like no, there's young people entering this space. So I think to your point is the repair shops of the future, they're out there, and I think there's going to be more of them, but they're progressive in their thinking. What they do for the culture of the shop is really unique. I asked a lot of the things they were doing. It was like, okay, you probably don't see this in your traditional other shop. How they engage with their employees over the weekends, or what they did together, and it's like, okay, this does work in that environment. So yeah, there's definitely a formula there, and we can't write it off.
And by the way, what do you think good young people look for when they're looking to pick out their career or looking for a place to go work? It's exactly what you just explained there. They're looking for that fun place. They're looking for a place that is going to treat them right and get the training that they need and mentor them. And I think that was something that we needed so much work on in our industry. And I think there's still plenty of shops that still need that lesson to kind of upskill themselves from a leadership standpoint. But when you paint that example, that's exactly what we need to draw in more talent. That's what we need to draw in bigger and brighter and better. I just feel like there are examples out there now of businesses in the diesel world that are acting like great businesses and are great businesses. And to me, that is one of the coolest things to see, one of the coolest transitions to see, because there are so many good people in the diesel business and so many that are my dear friends, right? And to see that next evolution, there's a lot of change, but I think it's pushed them in a better direction. I think it's pushed them to be better shops, and ultimately that's better to try and draw that next generation of talent.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, Jay, I go back to the next set of power sources are much more complex. A hydrogen fuel cell has 2,000 parts in it. Something will fail, So what I would put out there for the diesel shops, who do you think is going to fix that complex piece of product? And the answer for me personally is not like, oh, we're going to ship this heavy thing that's costing a lot of money across the country and somebody's going to fix it and ship it back. No. The question is who's the local doctor? Who's got, 20 years ago we thought a clean room was like, who would have a clean room? It was only the big guys. Well, we have clean rooms today all around the country. So I think the diesel shops have a great chance to evolve and even be, a bigger solution in the future. It's just that they just got to get really good at what they're doing today. And to your point, they got to get young people in. They got to get their culture right. And I think that there's going to be plenty of opportunities for them down the road.
That is one major concern with both the diesel and automotive businesses. I think if you look at the average age of technician right now, you're approaching 50 years old. And it's a real concern when you look at and dive into the numbers of how many baby boomer technicians are going to be retiring versus the amount coming in. How do you think we go about trying to drive that next generation? Based on what you had said before, some of it I think is a paradigm shift and showing that the diesel business has changed and that, that the future is bright. There's lots of opportunity out there. But it is still a concern that the average age of technician continues to rise. And I know for me selfishly, I try to sound the alarms on this a lot, but I also think it's a reality that our workforce is aging. We need to refresh our workforce. We need to make sure that we're building for the future. How do you think we go about promoting this to a younger generation that, this is the right place to be?
Well, I told you that my roots in engineering, and I believe in this concept that, this whole Gemba concept, you got to go where the work is. Hey, listen, they got to see shops that are vibrant, clean. Listen, you walk our shop, we got 15 laptops laying out there. We're diagnosing. It's not always about just turning the wrench. It's about using your technology, using your understanding. I think we have to take the perception of what being a technician is out. I can imagine sometime in the future that you're spending 30-40% of your time on the computer figuring out programming, understanding, diagnosing, and less time, turning a wrench. So understand that this is sophisticated work, and there's something for everybody that wants to participate. So so I think what I would suggest is that we have to bring those the high school kids. We got to show them, give them internship jobs. You know what? Even if they can become service writers, let them understand what it takes to do things. And how did they get that truck back on the road? That was them. So I think we need to create that environment where they can see and how they can make a good living and have a good life um, uh, wherever they're at in the country.
I think there's so much value in telling the stories of the people in the shops. In one example that I look to is my time at Diesel Injection Service way back in the day, when those pump rebuilders and the folks in the service shop, they were like celebrities in the ag world, right? They were, everybody knew who they were. And, you'd go out and say, hey, I know so-and-so, and I work side by side with this person, and people are like in awe. Like I truly think when you look back through the history of your company, there's been that element of, being able to shine a light on those people that are doing the work. And I just think there's so much value and so much need for that moving forward, to really paint these folks as the talented people that they are. And, as we look to the future of the diesel business, and not just the diesel business, but as you talk about the alternative power sources, we need talented people. We need people that are really good at this. And the more we can kind of paint them in that celebrity light, I think the more attractive it is for that young person to come into this business.
Yeah, and Jay, I will tell you the other side of it. I'll draw a parallel to what we're doing in our reman operations. I am continually challenging the team to come up where, if there's work that is, a lot of repetitive work, how do we automate it? Because you know what? I need our team for their brain power. And it's been a while since you've been here, and you're more than welcome to come back. You'll see, actually, we have our first robot. And what is it doing? It's sorting shims. Because once again, what I want our technicians, these are brain surgeons. I want them to do brain surgery. Wherever else we can take that other stuff out, I want it out. Because I want more thinking, I want more study and understanding. So to your point, as understanding what does it really mean, and then we have to take some of the repetitive work out of it, so they can be more productive.
Did you hear the news? WrenchWay is launching local chapters across the U.S. WrenchWay local chapters bring together the best shops and dealerships with schools, technicians, and other industry professionals, with the goal of promoting and improving auto and diesel careers in local communities. WrenchWay's local online communities provide a detailed look at what it's like working at the best shops in the area, an effective way for schools to connect with local shops and dealerships, an engaging forum for members to discuss industry topics, and a fun way to win prizes while helping industry and local schools. WrenchWay local chapters are now available in Charlotte, Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver, Detroit, Houston, Indianapolis, Madison, Milwaukee, the Twin Cities, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Portland, and Raleigh, with more chapters coming soon. Learn more and join wrenchway.com/local-chapters. Link is in the show notes.
I want to move back to the shop side in a little bit more detail. And as we look for the future change in the diesel business, how challenging will it be for a now diesel business to remain a really good, profitable business moving into the future? And the reason I say that is investment in technology. And I don't know if this is going to be forced specialization in some levels, or if you can still kind of have that work on everything mentality. But when you look at one of your service dealers and being able to kind of dissect, how you understand what you need to invest in terms of technology, I think looking at the pressures on maybe labor rates at these shops and making sure that they're charging accordingly, because if we're doing brain surgery type of work and we're requiring really advanced tools, it's not going to come at a cheap price, right? So how do you push forward remaining profitable?
Yeah, I think it's for us, and it's been a learning curve. you know, when even in our own shop. And I think that special, I think you will see much more specialization. The reality of it is you got to be, if you're going to be really good at fixing engines, you need to be good at fixing engines. And this is a little paradigm in our space where, a customer wants everything done end to end. And this is where I think you have to have partnerships. A shop that works on driveline is probably hard for them to really have all the technology and tools to work on an engine. So yeah, I think it's going to drive specialization. And can it be profitable? It must be profitable because you're not going to survive. But on the other side, I think we have such a long tail, be it diesel or I would say even gasoline engines. So we have to be able to, get this tail right for the next 15, 20, 30 years. But we got to make sure we're taking and investing in that other technology without not losing sight of our core business. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to take some specialization and it's going to take some reinvestment going forward.
I agree. And I've got a take on this that I would love to get your opinion on, and that is the need to educate the end consumer about the rise in prices, right? Because I think if we just say, hey, tomorrow we're going to double our labor rate, it's probably not going to go over really well. But I talk about this with my dad's little automotive shop, right? Where we need to start educating, and we can use social media, we can use whatever channels we have, but start educating the general consumer about how advanced of repairs these are, and really starting to shift from that grease monkey mentality to more of a educating our clients and educating the general consumer and general public about how complicated some of this stuff is, so that when prices start to scale, they understand why. Are you going to force resistance, or are you going to face resistance? Absolutely. But I think the more we can get out in front of this right now and educate the general consumer and the general public about why prices are rising, I think we put ourselves in a much better position moving forward. But I'm curious as to your take. Like, do you see value in that general education of a consumer?
Yeah, and listen, Jay, who knows what the future systems are going to be, but let's take a hypothetical example. You're going to have a system that's going to be, let's say, on the hydrogen side. It's going to be much more complex. It may not fail as frequently, and by the way, that's still TBD. That's still spreadsheet work today. But you would expect it to be more robust. But because of the technology, a small part today that costs $5 the part may go up to 15, but the technology and the tools and the resources required to make that repair are going to be much more expensive. So people have to understand this. I mean, think about a cell phone today. I mean, if something fails in a cell phone, for most part, you're getting a new cell phone, but the cost of repair is so high. But your expectation for mean time between repairs is longer. So things have got much more sophisticated. But when it needs a small repair, it's going to be more expensive. And I think as long as you have the right tools and you do the right repair, and the customer knows, yep, now they got another full life cycle out of it, then you're just charging a fair amount for what it's taken to do, and there needs to be education for that.
How educated do you think somebody like a fleet is right now? I feel like they've got a pretty good sense of maybe where they're going and in their conversations, but when you look at some of these larger companies that have fleets, it's been tossed around that there's more and more going electric, versus some of the other powertrains, but in the power plants. What do you see in that regard? The electric side, is there, obviously there's on the automotive side a lot of pressure on the electrical, the EV side. It feels like there's some pressure on maybe the Class 8 side, but curious as to what you see maybe the future there.
Yeah, I think as we said at the beginning, even though I grew up being around engine, and my closest friends are all engine engineers and they know all this stuff, I stand back and says, you know what'll happen is based on the application, we're going to have different uses. So I'm not on the OE side of the business, but that's my to the 2 cents of what's going to happen. So will there be electric school buses? Will there be electric trucks? Sure, there will be. What applications? We'll see. Could there be combination of power sources? There could be, absolutely. But this here I like to point to a little something we heard in one of our associations, and I don't know if people are aware of this company, but I heard about Peter Grupner, Grupner Motors in Arizona, and Peter, if he's got a great podcast, and people can go Google him. He's done some work out there, but they repair Tesla vehicles, and particularly the Roadster. I got the chance to meet with Peter, and well, people at one point I thought only Tesla repair batteries. No, they don't. These guys have figured out how to repair for a fifth of the cost. They do other things. The market will work itself out to create more repair. So now you can have a repair shop that repairs batteries. So my only point to you is I don't know what's going to be out there. There's probably something else that we even haven't thought about. But whatever it is, there's going to be a need for repair. And, the diesel repair shop of today, it's going to be, it's going to be there for a long time. But when it needs to progress, there's going to be something else for it to fix.
I do remember when the DPF was introduced, how terrified people were of that. And that seems like kind of just a little blip on the radar now in the grand scheme of things, but I do remember that being launched and people just freaking out about it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was on the OE side where we were putting DPFs, and we were putting urea. I mean, I don't even want to know the thousands of hours we spent talking about that, how urea is going to be bad and it's going to spoil and it's not going to work. Heck, over the weekend I had to buy two canisters to put urea in my car, because I run a diesel. So to your point, and I can remember that, and I can tell you the massive investments to think about alternatives that were made at that point in time. So to your point, that was such an emotional event. And you said that 10 years before that was Common Rail. Oh, Common Rail can't be rebuilt. You can't do all. And look at where we're at today. So I think you bring up a good point that the DPFs and the whole emission system was it was a chemical plant, and we thought, oh my God, but look at it today. It's a big. I think the last auto care report I looked at, right on the top, #1 repair segment is the EGT and the DPF and the whole after treatment system.
Well, I think it goes squarely into what you were saying there too, where regardless of the evolution in technology, it's going to branch off into something else that's going to drive more repair work, the need for more technology, the need for more skill. And our shops are as well positioned as any other place out there to take advantage of that. And I think, if you look through the history of business, that's what a lot of very successful business people talk about is when everybody's freaking out, that is such a great opportunity for you, right? Because there's going to drive different opportunities that you don't even know about yet.
Yeah. Well, the analogy that comes to my head is when one of the movies I like goes Days of Thunder. You just got to stay outside the lane.
Great movie.
Yeah, stay inside the lane, listen to the pit crew, and just go through it. So it's it'll be there's something on the other side of all of this for everybody.
So I want to talk about, you had talked about just being a good business and how having a solid foundation really sets you up for whatever comes your way moving forward. Do you have any advice for some of these shops that are out there listening, or even those technicians that are out there listening, about how you do that? How do you make sure that your foundation doesn't have the cracks when we do go to evolve and we do go to these next steps? How do you make sure that your business is in order so that you're ready to take advantage of this stuff?
Yeah, I think first thing is know the numbers, understand it, and understand profitability, understand investment, understand the value of your time. Yes, a technician's got you can only work so many hours a week. Understand how can you do your job better? What things you shouldn't be working on? How can you be an expert? In that particular repair your field. I think once you understand that and can relate it to your scorecard, in your shop, and really hold yourself accountable, or go get help to make sure it's not even about being positive profitability. It's the right amount of profitability. Because if you don't have that and you're not healthy, you can't reinvest in the future. So that's on the shop side for both technicians and owners. And I would say from a technician perspective, you know, things are going to change. Ask for training. Educate yourself. Get to learn new things. Don't be afraid of it. So I think all of us as human beings, we just need to continue to be, creatures of learning new things all the time. It should never stop.
That is incredible advice. I think when we talk to the best technicians, that is also what they're looking for, right? They want, they're maybe not as scared of technology as a lot of us, but they just want to be trained properly. And right now, we're lucky. There's as much training out there as there's ever been to be able to educate yourself. And there are a lot of really good technicians that love, it's their craft. They love doing training at night or maybe on a weekend. But if you can supply training during the week, I think that's a really big advantage. And I think the big takeaway for me is that training side. Both, if you're not as skilled as you'd like to be on your numbers, find somebody to educate you on it. If you're not as educated on a different type of power unit, go find some education and work together as a team with your shop and the technicians and maybe even your service managers, your general managers, whoever it might be. Just make sure that you're providing them the education, because in order to stay on top of this, you've got to be educated and you've got to be passionate about this. And I think those that do and those that go the extra step in terms of training will be far more advanced and in a far better position as we move forward.
Absolutely agree. Be hungry and learn.
As you look at your career, and I want to shift from the diesel business back to you to kind of finish off the podcast, do you ever think about the legacy that you're leaving and really what impact you've had on the industry?
Well, you know what? It's not about me. I will tell you. Somebody asked me. Actually, one of our newer managers the last couple of years, and she asked me why I do what I do. I have to tell you, what gets me up every morning is when I see people succeed, and I truly mean that. And be it people that are with us here today, or people that I've known that have gone to other careers, to me, I just hope I can give as much back to the industry as I've taken from it over my time, and that's what makes it fun every day. That to me is what's so inspiring for me, just seeing people succeed.
I want to give a shout out to two former employees of the company, one of which I've got to grab this quick. I've got his card still here today, but it's Charlie Varco, who Charlie was an early mentor of mine who passed away a few years back, and was one of those people, along with Jack Cramblett and several others within the company, that I owe a lot in my career to. And at the time, I remember sitting with them and thinking to myself, like, why would they take the time to spend with me to explain this in more detail? And I think as I get older in my career, that's one of the things that sticks out to me, is similar to you, trying to give back as much as I can, just because the industry has been great to all of us. And you hear so much about the negative side of things, but when you look at the people that have been a part of this industry, there are some incredible people in it, and some people that will forever have an imprint on
Yeah,
me.
and absolutely, and I think we all have them as these people in our history. Man, we can't just forget them. And I'm personally grateful for, all my past leaders and all the future leaders. So um, I think there's something rewarding about, giving back.
Do you ever take any time off to do anything fun? Every time I talk to you,
Uh,
you're all work. You're always working all the time.
no, I do. Actually, I asked this question of my team, so I have to be able to answer it. Yeah, you know, my big thing now has been in the last couple of years. I just love walking. I love walking and listening uh, uh, to books and just the quiet time. Just the quiet time is and the peaceful time is really really good. And sometimes you end up traveling too much, so just not going anywhere is a good thing. So
I I have to ask, any good tips on how to remain energized while you're traveling? Because that's one thing I've noticed, that when I go through a stretch of traveling and I get back, I am beat.
yeah. Well, you know what? I would just say you gotta pace yourself, and most importantly, don't let the stress of travel get to you. You can't control the airlines, you can't control anything, so just take a deep breath. It's okay, and you'll get through it. And don't put too much stress on something you can't control.
Well, HK, this has been so much fun to catch up with you and learn more about everything that you're doing, your vision of the industry, and really, I started with this, but I really do say this with all honesty. A company that I truly care about, and with a lot of people that I really care about, and just hope to see nothing but success in the future.
Well, Jay, thank you for having me on. And listen, like I said at the beginning, I'm but it's an awesome feeling ever since I've known you the last couple of years and what you're trying to do and what you built with WrenchWay. It's really cool to watch, and you've made a big impact. So it's really cool to see people start new things, change them, morph them, and kind of think outside the box. So keep driving it, and you're making a big impact. Thank you.
I appreciate it, my friend. Hope to have you on again
All
sometime
right,
soon.
buddy. Thank you.
That wraps up this week's episode of Beyond the Wrench. Be sure to tune in next week for another brand new episode. As a reminder, don't forget to rate and follow Beyond the Wrench on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps us get Beyond the Wrench in front of other fantastic shop owners, managers, technicians, and dealers just like you, so we can continue to help improve, promote, and grow this amazing industry. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week.